Hi everyone, welcome to this evening's session. My name is Zoe Clark, I'm Programme Manager here at NAS, and I'm delighted this evening to be joined by Helen Jones, who is a resilience and wellbeing coach. Hi Helen, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining. So we'll give everyone a minute just to start joining us, get the notification that we're live, and I'll go through a little bit of housekeeping. But hello to everyone if you are joining us live, and also hi if you're watching on catch up as well. So the video will stay on our page afterwards, so on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and we'll also share the link across our Instagram channel and Helen's as well afterwards to be able to catch up afterwards if you're not able to join for the whole session. But if you are joining us live, please say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're joining from. It'd be great to see everyone getting involved there. And please do pop any questions in the chat as well, because we'll be able to have time at the end to come and answer any questions that we've not covered through the session. So I think that's the main kind of housekeeping points to get started. So I think, Helen, if you want to introduce yourself and we can get into it, that'd be great.
Hi, yes. So I'm Helen, wellbeing and resilience coach, and I've also been living with AS for about 4 years now. So I really understand both the physical and the emotional impact of living with it. And through my coaching, I work with a lot of people with chronic illnesses in general and some with AS, and just help them to really redesign their life around their health and their well-being and what they need to best take care of themselves.
That's brilliant and so important as well. And it was interesting because I came across you on Instagram, so from your posts, and the advice you share is brilliant. So really looking forward to a few sort of nuggets of wisdom this evening. So a nice place to start as well might be kind of learning a little bit more about your journey with Axial SpA and kind of how that's influenced your work.
Yeah, so as I said, I got it 4 years ago. My symptoms started, and I, was really the physical side of it. I kind of not got my head around, but I kind of started to understand. But what I wasn't prepared for was the mental impact, and I think that's what a lot of people living with it sort of say. And I lived my life at 100 miles an hour, and I was go, go, go. I was this yes person. And I loved doing absolutely everything. And once I got AS, I wanted to keep doing that and keep being that person, but almost I wasn't able to. And I found that part of it really, really challenging. And I think over time, I've realized how critical it is to prioritize, my own needs and learn how to set boundaries, which has been tricky. And yeah, in doing that has then led me to want to work with others and help them. And I think once you start to set those boundaries and prioritize your needs, you really do see the benefits and how you feel and how you're able to manage the disease.
That's great. And I didn't mention in the beginning, I've got Axial SpA as well. So I think it'd be great, both of us, we can bring our kind of personal experiences into it as well, because I think it's so easy sometimes for us to give advice. But I think when you're living with it as well, it really gives you that proper understanding of what it's like to live with it, definitely.
Yeah, totally. I see it so much with my clients as well, is that before, having it, living their life, what in whatever way it was, but living their life sort of at 100 miles an hour and doing everything, or whether it's overachieving at work, whatever it is. And that really, once that isn't your sort of identity anymore, it becomes really, really hard.
Definitely, even that is like a whole, it's almost like a process of mourning, or like that grief process, isn't it, to go through?
Yeah. Did you find, what was your adjustment going from how you were before to when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, it was a really big adjustment because at the time I was at university and I was training to be an osteopath. So it was a really kind of full-on course academically, but also physically as well. And then I graduated and was working as an osteopath. So it was really kind of interesting looking back, because obviously the idea of how I thought I'd be practicing and working when I started uni is very different than to when I left uni and I had to adapt around the conditions. So in hindsight, I think it enhanced my practice because it really gave me an insight in terms of how to sort of treat people, how to understand them, and especially most of my patients are coming because they're in pain, so it gave a really good insight. But yeah, it was a very big adjustment, and particularly, you know, in your early 20s, you're kind of wanting to study and then go out in the evenings and go out at the weekend. Yeah, big difference, definitely.
Yeah, managing that in early 20s, I can't, you know, mine was in my late 20s, and I found that hard enough. So yeah.
And I mean, tonight's session, because we kind of focused a bit on self-compassion, a bit on boundary settings. I think they really go hand in hand, don't they? But I think it'll be good just as a bit of an intro to kind of explain why we've used this term of self-compassion, what it means, and why it's so important for all of us with Axial SpA.
Yeah, it's, you know, that title, self-compassion, it essentially means being kind to yourself and understanding of what you're going through, particularly in the tough times. It's very easy to be, you know, kind to yourself and when things are going right, but it's when things are going wrong that is a lot harder to do. And so you know, living with AS, and you're faced with these regular flare-ups, regular frustrations, setbacks and challenges, and it's learning to kind of, it's funny because the compassionate bit, most of, and I see this with my clients, most people are very compassionate to others, and so it's the self-compassion, it's the self bit that takes the work, and it's almost learning how to treat yourself as you treat those around you, and showing the same, you know, kindness and love that you would to a loved one to yourself, and turning that inwards. And, you know, on paper it sounds quite easy to do, but in reality it's different. It's really difficult because, you know, people, it's really common. I notice it myself, I see it in my clients, and when a flare-up comes on, it's so easy to do that self-blame, to try, you know, go over in your head, what did I do to cause this? What was my fault? What did, you know, I do? And to feel, I think also a lot of shame as well in a society that, you know, celebrates sort of being busy and doing a lot and high energy things. It can make you feel like a failure sometimes.
Absolutely. It is a really common feeling, isn't it, where we feel like, oh, we need to be productive all the time. And yeah, it can be a really big pressure on us when you're living with a condition that sometimes forces you to just stop in your tracks, definitely. And is that a common thing that you come across in terms of how people struggle with that self-compassion? Does that fit with other long-term conditions as well as Axial SpA?
Yeah, it's definitely the common theme I see, you know, amongst everyone is that guilt and shame, you know, coming out in through different words, but it's that same emotion and feeling that people tend to feel. And it's also sometimes, I think, people, whether other people have made comments or not made comments, it's sometimes people build it up in their head regardless, because it's as I said, it's that kind of societal sort of expectation of what a successful person is like.
Absolutely. And I noticed you used the word guilt there. Is there any particular advice you sort of give people to help them shift from that point of those feelings of guilt towards self-compassion?
Yeah, it can be so difficult at times, but and those feelings of guilt are so normal. They, as I said, they come up a lot, but it's trying to remember that this is a physical illness, and to remind yourself that actually, when, you know, living with a chronic illness, whatever it is, but, you know, with AES specifically, that rest and prioritizing yourself and taking care of yourself are fundamental in managing it. And being kind to yourself in how you do that is so important. It's almost getting people to recognize that self-compassion and how you speak to yourself and looking after yourself and prioritizing your needs is just as important as the medication and the stretching, and almost it's part of your toolbox to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's definitely something we come across a lot on the helpline and in the peer support sort of groups that we run as well. And I think an element as well, we didn't really chat about this when we were sort of preparing for the session, but I think with it being an invisible condition for a lot of people, obviously, unless you use a mobility aid or you have those postural changes that some people have, I think when it's invisible, then you feel like there are those bigger expectations on you still from loved ones if they don't necessarily understand, because they can't look at you and see that you're in lots of pain or you're really fatigued. So I think that adds another sort of layer of difficulty to it.
Definitely. I definitely think that if it was, you know, even a visible injury like a broken leg, people would feel far less guilty about having to rest and prioritize their own needs. Than I think the invisibility of it is part of the whole battle in itself.
Definitely. And I've seen a comment come in from, I think it's from Tish, who said, it's taken me so long to give myself self-care and still I struggle. As a professional, I definitely feel shame and guilt as society see me mask a lot. It's exhausting. So yeah, it sounds like, really similar to what you've been describing there. So hopefully we'll share some good advice.
Yeah.
So I think, are there any kind of key tips for people kind of getting started in this area? Sort of anything that you think people can kind of take away in terms of how they start sort of changing those feelings of guilt and being kinder to themselves?
Yeah, I think it really comes back to that, learning how to speak to yourself like you would a best friend and treating yourself in the same kind of way, and remind yourself that this is a physical illness, and that in order to, firstly be the best for those around you and to live, how you want to live, you need to first of all prioritize yourself and to go easy on yourself with what you've got on your plate. I don't know, what have you found that, in when you've been feeling particularly maybe guilty or, even shameful of having to stop and rest or say no to plans? What have you found that's helped?
It's one of those things that I find myself reminding myself all the time. We sort of discussed this a little bit when we were preparing. It's not like, oh, I've learned how to do it, so I can do it now. It's that continual reminder. I think when I've had a bit of a gap between flares, I notice it's more difficult as well. It's kind of like I need to remind myself. But I think definitely it is just that conscious reminder of, sometimes it's listening to that inner voice and thinking, would I say that to a friend? Like if a friend came to me and said, oh, I'm, really fatigued or my condition's flared up, and 90% of the time what I'm saying in my head, I wouldn't say to a friend. And I kind of turn that around to myself and think, if I wouldn't say it to my friend, why on earth am I saying it to myself? So that's been a really good way of kind of making me stop and think and kind of reframe that, definitely.
And I think on that, it's great that you're doing that. And I think getting it down onto paper can be an even more effective way, because we have so much going on and around our heads, and it can, these thoughts, you can start to really, really believe them. And what can really help my clients is when they start to write down these thoughts that they're having and practice this exercise of, questioning, would I say that to my friend? Probably not. But a really helpful, activity to do is to write it down and get that perspective. And I think for a lot of people, seeing their thoughts out on paper can be a bit of a shock to the system, because it makes you, even getting that distance helps you to realize that maybe they're not all facts and they could be fiction. And then that's a really useful way to start actually questioning the evidence against, what you're telling yourself. Because if you're going to pay attention to the negative thoughts, it's only fair that you also pay attention to your positive thoughts. So you can do this by getting those thoughts out and actually writing underneath what's actually a more positive, kind, caring thought that I could have about myself.
That's great advice. I really like that. And especially, as you say, when your thoughts are really busy, getting it down on paper so you can kind of have that separation. That's really great advice.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great as well to kind of chat a little bit around kind of boundary setting, because I think sometimes that's even harder then, even when we know ourselves, like, oh, that's going to be too much for me, or I'm like when you're asked to do asked for plans and things like that with friends and family, and it can be really difficult to kind of say no or set those boundaries around kind of the expectations from people as well. I don't know if you've got any advice on that, or if we can explore that a little bit.
Yeah, boundaries is a huge part of it. And as I said at the beginning, for me, it was, throughout my 20s, I was a yes person, and it didn't take much of my energy. I just wanted to do everything. So I never had to really learn to set many boundaries because it didn't require much of me. And so then now it's now a requirement. It's not even, and if I don't set them, then my health is impacted and I can't, and then it has the big knock-on effects. And so firstly, you mentioned there about knowing what's good for you and not good for you. And that isn't always, for some people, they actually might not be clear on what they even know does drain their energy or what does give them energy. They might not be clear on that. And this is almost like the foundations of setting boundaries. So before you even set them, it's actually about getting really clear on what fills you up and what drains you. And the clearer you get on this, almost the more solid your foundation is for when you actually then go to set the boundary. And then, which is great. So you do this bit, and then it comes to, as you said, it's the setting the boundary, which is so much easier said than done. And boundaries are such a buzzword these days. And when you're living with AS, I think what can really, really help more than anything is connecting with your why. And so getting really, really clear on, okay, I'm gonna set this boundary. I'm gonna sort of, let's just say, for example, say no to, I've got 2 weekends in a row, I'm going to say no to this person's birthday. And yes, maybe naturally these feelings come up of, oh God, how, what are they going to think? What are they going to, maybe they won't like me. Maybe they're going to think, oh God, there she goes again, flaky, can't turn up. And firstly, it's not about saying no to others. It's about saying yes to yourself. And I think really, really ingraining that thought. And then connecting with your why is about what are the benefits this is going to bring me. So by setting this boundary, first of all, saying, right, what are the benefits of this? It means tomorrow and the next weekend I could go and do some, go and have a nice afternoon with some friends and do something sociable and maybe wake up feeling better. Whatever it is for you, connecting with what that's going to bring you, and also connect with what are the consequences if I don't set this boundary. And I think actually almost that's the most powerful one.
You shared so many good bits of wisdom there all in one go. I actually scrolled down when you said it's not about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to yourself. I really love that. I feel like that could almost be like a mantra you stick on your wall just to remind yourself when when you feel that pressure of, oh, should I say yes or no to something? That's brilliant.
It's about like bringing the focus back to you, and we can get so clouded by everyone around us. And I mean, also we can very incorrectly think we believe what they're thinking anyway, but which might not even be right in the first place, but it could be. They could be making comments. That's fine. But it's about shifting your focus back into you and your, that why, your health, your priority, and connecting with that future version of you and imagining her living you know, her day without feeling absolutely exhausted and, you know, zapped of energy. And the next often I get asked then, okay, well then, right, I know what drains me, I know what gives me energy. I'm gonna set the boundary. I know what situation I need to set it with. I'm gonna set it, and then how do I actually like go about doing it?
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to communication. I talk about this a lot on my Instagram videos about the fact that it's an invisible disease, as you said, and because of the invisibility of it, like people around us aren't mind readers, and people have their own lives, their own problems, their own things going on, and we can't expect them to understand what we're going through because it is invisible. On even days when I'm feeling really good, I honestly sometimes almost can not believe it, and then and I do believe it. But yeah, using the way you communicate and tell people to actually explain your situation, explain why, and make sure you use, this is a more practical solution, but make sure you use I statements. So you say, you know, I need this, because it brings the focus back to, instead of them and what they are or aren't doing or whatever, it makes it back about you and what you need, and that can be much harder to argue with.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice, definitely. And I think as well, you touched on the fact that other people are so busy and have lots going on. I think sometimes we kind of underestimate that, and we can kind of make it such a big thing in our heads. And then actually when it comes down to it, they're like, oh, okay, fine. Like, of course, we'll do something another day. And you're like, oh, I was really fearful of that conversation, or, thought it was going to be a much bigger thing. And then, yeah, you communicate it and it's, oh, okay.
Yeah, we always need to give others credit for their, ability to understand. And if they don't understand and they don't recognize it, that's on them. And about then continuing to sort of stay strong with whatever boundary it is that you want to give. And people are adaptable. They will start to learn what you need and what you want. And yeah, if they don't, then I guess that might be then the stage where you reassess maybe what that person is in your life to you.
Yeah, because I think that's something that we kind of forget. I mean, even as we go through our lives and go through different stages of our lives, the people around us naturally change anyway. So I think it's natural then when you have a big life change, like having a condition like this, that it may well be that those people around you change naturally anyway, in terms of, some people may be more supportive and they fill that role. And then other people, it might be that they become less close to you, but they fulfill a different role in your life, and you sort of have different, how those relationships change. I think that it's hard when relationships change, but I think it's a natural part of life anyway. But it just sometimes it feels like your hand is forced when it is more of an abrupt condition changing.
Yeah, you're so right, and it can be really difficult, and it definitely doesn't make it easy on top of everything that you're going through. But you've almost got to see it as you want the best support system around you that are gonna help you and understand what you need. So that's maybe what it helps you realize who they are.
Definitely. Yeah. And I've seen a comments popped up on Instagram. Someone shared, they said, I find people often forget and I don't like going on about it all the time. I don't know if you've got any reflections on that at all, or any advice.
Yeah, that is a hard one, because I get you, and I've been there, and I will continue to be there at times. And I just think it comes back to almost what we're saying at the, in the middle there, that about it is a physical illness. And reframing it as, is it going on about it? Is there a way that you can just mention it and say, because you are living with it day to day, and perhaps questioning if it was a visible thing that you could see, would you still not want to go on about it? Or I think, yeah, and just maybe also getting more and more confident in the way that you communicate it and explain it to others, and yeah, in a way that doesn't feel like, you know, you're moaning about it, and just it's more of a statement and a fact that you're just informing other people in order to, you know, help them. It's also to help them take care of it. I think that's what you've got to remember is, you know, your friends or those around you, they do want to help you. And sometimes my friends have told me this, you know, they've said they, you know, we want to be able to hear and help you. And I think people, when you communicate, there's never a bad thing in that. And you're actually helping those around you.
Absolutely. And do you use a spoon theory at all? Because I find sometimes that language can be good, like on those like low energy days. You can just say, you know, I've got it's a low spoon day, or, you know, if something's coming up, you can say, oh, I don't have the spoons for that. And it kind of takes the edge off it a little bit. I don't know if you use that at all.
Yeah, I like the spoon theory. It's a really good way of, you know, explaining it and being able to visualize it, I think. And it adds that, for an invisible disease, it adds something that is more visual to help you recognize it. So I think that's definitely one that people could go away and, you know, and look up spoon theory and see how others have used it, and then be able to explain that way.
And talking of kind of looking things up and using resources, it'd be great to hear a little bit about your kindly sharing a worksheet with all our viewers after the session. So it'd be good to hear a little bit about kind of what that involves, how people can use it, before we then share it after the session.
Yes. So the worksheet is basically, it's kind of what we've talked about. It's how you find out your energy takers and your energy givers in your life to build those foundations. And it's an interactive activity on the worksheet where you go through, it's split into 4 groups. It's habits and routines, people and relationships, places and situations, and health and body. And so you split it out into those 4, and you really think about your life as a whole and look at where in your life people are, you know, things and situations and activities are draining your energy and really zapping you, and other areas where actually they're giving you and they're making you feel better. And then from there it takes you into the boundaries section and gets you to sort of look into that a bit deeper, and then has some kind of actionable steps on how to put them into practice in your day-to-day life. So hopefully it should help you to be setting boundaries with clear communication and understanding why you're doing it.
That sounds ideal, because I think sometimes it can feel a little bit daunting or difficult to know where to get started. So yeah, we'll be able to share that with everyone so they can watch this video, hopefully get inspired, and then put it all into action then.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So, I mean, our time has absolutely flown by. I can't believe that's been half an hour already. And you shared so many just brilliant things, and lots of advice, which I think hopefully people will be able to take away and really put into good use. Before we get to any questions, so please do pop any questions for Helen in the comments, and we'll cover as many as we can. It would be good just to hear kind of, is there like a main thing or a main takeaway that you'd want people to kind of leave tonight's session with?
I think I want people to start recognizing that self-compassion is part of their AS toolbox, and just as, you know, important as all the other things that you're doing to take care of your well-being, whether that's, you know, stretching every morning, taking your medication, and, you know, doing exercise, whatever it is, that self-compassion becomes a part of that, because it is so important. Studies actually even show, there have been studies done on many people with chronic illnesses, and it does show that self-compassion positively impacts your well-being. So the science is there to prove it too. And I think yeah, that's the biggest takeaway. And just the, you know, the one with boundaries, that, as you said, you wrote down, you're not saying no to others, you're saying yes to yourself, and to really connect with that why that you're doing it, and what the repercussions are if you don't do it, to try and help motivate you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. I think that rounds it off really nicely. I'll just check for the comments because we've answered a few as we've gone along. So we haven't got any coming in from Instagram at the moment. Hi to Patrol who's joined. Hopefully it's been really helpful. So yeah, we've got a bit of time. So if anybody does want to pop any questions in there, but if not, I'll be keeping an eye on the recording afterwards. So if you've got any follow-up questions and you're watching on catch up, please do pop them in there and be able to answer those as they come in on catch up as well. While we're giving people a chance to add any questions, do you want to tell people kind of how they can find you after the session?
Yes. So the workbook that I talked about is on, you can either get it on my website on the home page, there's just a downloadable link, or on my Instagram in the link in bio, you can also download it there. So my website is www.helenjonescoaching.com. And then my Instagram handle is Helen Jones Coaching. And I would love to just kind of connect with you guys there anyway on Instagram. You know, as you said, Zoe, you found me there. I share videos that kind of help share my experience with it. And, you know, my motivation for doing it was when I first had AS, I just so wanted to go and find someone else that I could relate to, that sort of seemed to understand what I was going through. And I just really want to be that for other people. And yeah, hopefully it'd be lovely to connect with you there anyway, and just sort of have some other AS friends.
Yeah, because I mean, even just that, being able to talk to people who really understand and hear from people who get it, I think even that just takes a weight off as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you can feel really alone in it all. And yeah, anything that just helps you know that you're not on your own really, really does help.
Definitely. Well, it's been a fantastic session. Thank you so much. I'll keep an eye out over the next few days for any comments that are coming on as people watch on catch up as well. And we'll share the recording on our Instagram channel as well, to be able to get it out to everyone that you have following on your Instagram as well. So thank you again so much. Was there anything kind of final you wanted to add, or have we covered everything? We've covered loads. We've got thank yous coming in. You can see over on Instagram as well.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. You know, I just want to say, when I first was diagnosed, NAS was such a good platform and tool to use and turn to, and the way that all the information is explained and shared. And I just, yeah, it's been really nice to come on here and, you know, give that bit back as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I've got loads of thank yous coming in over Instagram. We can't, you're not able to see those on the chat, but
no,
yeah, the whole stream.
That's great.
Oh, that's lovely. Wonderful. So thank you so much. And yeah, for everybody who's joining, we'll advertise our next live sessions all across our social media, or you can sign up to our e-newsletter as well and be able to email you all the information about our next events. But yeah, if you've joined us partway through, then as soon as the live is finished, you can go back and watch from the beginning and get all of Helen's insights and advice. So thank you again so much for your time this evening, Helen, and thanks everyone for joining us, and see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.